This is Brother Peter Diamond here, and I was going to be checking in with an update concerning a certain false traditionalist who has been critical of us and some of our material. This individual is sort of half Fraternity of St. Peter, half Society of St. Pius X adherent. He's sort of somewhere in there, and he's attempted to refute arguments for the sedevacantist position, some of our stuff, etc. And we didn't really pay much attention to this individual, but he's been severely critical of us, and he comes across as this pseudo-intellectual and boasts about his language knowledge, and he's called us buffoons, he's called us hacks, he's called us all kinds of other things. He's lied about the buildings of our monastery, saying that they're something which they are not. And he acts like he knows this when we don't know almost anything about this individual at all, never have spoken with him. So anyway, we challenged him to a debate after someone emailed us and thought that that would be a good idea and brought to our attention some of the things he had been saying. And so we challenged him and said, okay, let's get on the phone and see if you can substantiate your position and your objections to the sedevacantist position. Let's see if you really understand Catholic teaching on the telephone. And we're mature, we'll give you a chance to speak. Okay, if we start to talk over each other, we'll go to a 2-minute, 3-minute format where we don't interrupt each other. We can handle that. We do that all the time. That's no problem, but you can't do it. And he refused to do it. Okay, after telling this individual, this go-between who was emailing him and emailing us, that he would debate us, that he would have an audio recording debate with us, when we actually challenged him and said, let's go, let's do this, he rejected. He was scared to death to get on the phone because he's a coward, he's a fraud, and his arguments would be completely refuted in a debate. And this is a picture of this guy, and I think that the picture in itself is quite revealing because you see him there with his pipe and a vain attempt to look sophisticated, to look intellectual, okay? And if he stood for the truth, then maybe it wouldn't matter. But because he's a modernist false traditionalist who accepts heretics as Catholics, I think this really tells you a lot about this individual. He's a guy who likes Chesterton and Belloc and philosophy and all of these things which savor of intellectual pride, okay, but is actually ignorant of the most important aspects of Catholic teaching, and I'm going to show that. Now, first of all of the arguments that this individual raises have already been dealt with and sufficiently and completely refuted, such as Vatican I's teaching on the perpetuity of the papal office, etc. And he's obviously oblivious to the fact that Benedict XVI is the #1 denier of Vatican I in the world, because he purports to be the Pope but teaches that Vatican I isn't binding. So if Vatican I matters at all, it would be proof positive that Benedict XVI is not the Pope, and of course it is, because he says that the Orthodox don't have to accept it, the Protestants don't have to accept it. So if he'd get his head out of the sand, he'd realize that if Vatican I matters, then you are disproving your position, okay? And other examples he tries to bring up of past papal errors, they've already been refuted, and things that he says on that are completely illogical. But I could do a thorough expose and go through all of his false arguments, but it's already been done. But I just want to focus on a few of the things that he says, which reveal that he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. For instance, someone asked him in his discussion of sedevacantism, quote, "Are you aware that dogmas are to be understood and believed as they are once declared by the Church?" And he says in response, "According to whom? Are you aware that the full extent of any teaching is not understood in this life? There is a thing called the development of doctrine. Truths of revelation become more apparent over time, or are deduced from earlier truths. The principal problem here is what is meant by declared by the Church. I've never read that before, and would like to see what textbook of dogmatic theology you are getting that from, since the tradition of the Church shows theologians behaving in a contrary manner." End quote. So someone asked him about the concept of believing dogmas as they were once declared by the Church, and he says according to whom he's never read that before. And he says that the theologians behave in a contrary manner. Well, obviously, this heretic has never read the First Vatican Council, or he doesn't read with comprehension, or he doesn't spend much time studying the dogmatic decrees, the most important decrees that we could study, which give us the real heart and meat of the faith and the ability and the knowledge we need to form proper positions on these issues. He's ignorant of that. Okay, he's ignorant of the meat of Catholic faith. And the First Vatican Council is what declared that we are to believe dogmas as they were once declared. Pope Pius IX, First Vatican Council, Decree on Revelation, Denzinger 1800, quote, "Hence also that understanding of its sacred dogmas must be perpetually retained, which Holy Mother Church has once declared, and there must never be a recession or a going away from that meaning under the specious name of a deeper understanding." End quote. So obviously this guy knows nothing about understanding Catholic dogmas. Nothing. He's the epitome of a blind spiritual fool. As he's got his pipe and his waxing poetic about Belloc and Chesterton, and he's ignorant of the most essential truths of Catholic teaching and oblivious to a basic point which he would have learned if he studied our material. He also talks about the development of doctrine. He's obviously a fan of the modernist Cardinal Newman, and this is sort of the mold that a lot of these false traditionalists, especially who gravitate toward the Society of St. Pius X, there's a real pseudo-intellectual pride where they like Belloc and Chesterton and philosophy, and so, which is fine if you stood for the pure dogmatic truth and you had a real knowledge of what is important and you were honest, then it wouldn't matter. But because they savor that kind of stuff but accept all kinds of heresies, it really reveals that they are drawn to the things that aren't important, the quote wisdom of man, but not the wisdom of God. And so I think that shows that the guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. That's just one example. And now that it's been pointed out that what he's saying reveals that he doesn't even understand or know, or that he hasn't even read carefully Vatican I, he'll probably take that down. But there's no doubt he said it, and we have it saved. Oh, by the way, this guy goes by the name Ryan, Grant, Athanasius, and Chester. Moving on to another example of this guy's false argumentation. He says that a pope who would become a heretic would not lose his office unless he taught that heresy ex cathedra. That's actually what he says. And I'll quote him. He says, in reference to St. Francis de Sales' quote, that a pope who was explicitly a heretic would ipso facto cease to be the pope and cast himself out of the church. He says that, quote, St. Francis' teaching only applies to a pope who teaches heresy ex cathedra, end quote. And in a comment on one of his articles on this topic, he says, quote, I fully grant that an ex cathedra statement which was heretical would in fact cause the Pope to lose his office, because that is the only time a guarantee is given of infallibility. Amongst the medievals, the term ex cathedra is nothing other than a word which means infallible, and those who debated the loss of papal office, such as Bellarmine, Canisius, and de Sales, among others, do so on the basis of an ex cathedra statement. Not one of them granted this would happen under ordinary magisterial teaching, end quote. So to get this straight, he says that a pope who becomes a heretic in his private capacity would not cease to be the pope, nor if he taught it in his ordinary magisterial capacity, but if he taught it ex cathedra, he would cease to be pope. Now, let's think about this. A pope teaching heresy ex cathedra. That's called impossible. It's a dogma defined by Vatican I that when a pope speaks ex cathedra, he is infallible. Anyone who denies that is anathema. A pope cannot teach heresy, let alone error, ex cathedra. He is infallible when he teaches ex cathedra. The notion of a pope teaching heresy ex cathedra is impossible. This is pure nonsense. The man he's talking about would have to lose his office before he taught anything which would meet the level of an ex cathedra statement. Or he would have had to have been an anti-pope from the beginning. God would never allow someone who is a true pope to teach heresy ex cathedra. This also makes a mockery of the papal office, because then anyone could say, well, any erroneous teaching we find among a true pope just proves that, he wasn't the pope. No, that would make a mockery out of the papal office and papal infallibility. A truly elected pope could never teach error or heresy ex cathedra. So the guy's argument here is blatantly heretical, and it demonstrates that he cannot even reason logically or carefully. And so the argument is flat out stupid. And this is why guys like this won't get on the phone and debate you, because in a debate all this would be pointed out and their specious argumentation, would be refuted.